everyone, and thank you for coming to today's Play Attention webinar. My name is Gwen Sorley, and I will be your host today. I really do appreciate all of you taking out some time today to learn a little bit more about Play Attention and how we utilize NASA-inspired technology along with the latest research in neuroplasticity in order to improve executive function and self-regulation. There are a few things I want to mention before we get started. One is that we are recording this event. So at the end of the webinar, you'll receive an email follow-up that will have the replay link. That way, if you miss any parts or you want to share with other family members or staff members who weren't able to attend, you'll be able to use that replay link. Also, if you take your mouse and you go to the bottom of the screen, you'll see that there's a chat feature. So if you have any questions during the webinar or comments, please do type your questions in because your questions truly do enhance everyone's experience. And I see that some of you have already found that chat box. And Ronald, thank you for typing in your note. I am doing well and I appreciate you being here. Cher also asks, will the slides be available? Yes, we will provide the slides as well. And so after the webinar, you'll receive not only the replay link, but we'll have the slides available for you as well. Okay. Now, also, you'll notice that there is a raise your hand icon. And so sometimes I'll ask you to interact with me. And of course, I can't see you. So I may ask you to raise your hand. So just click that in response to my question. Carolina, you are automatically on mute. We have a very large group, so everyone is on mute right now. Good question. All right, again, my name is Gwen Sorley. My background is in education. I have a master's in education, and I started using Play Attention back in 1996 when I was teaching in a public school setting, and at that time I was teaching second grade. During the past 25 years, I have used Play Attention with every age from about 5 years old all the way up through adulthood. So I do hope that my experiences using Play Attention with lots of different individuals will give you a better understanding of how Play Attention works and how we can customize a plan, a program for your particular needs. Now, this is where I usually talk about my agenda, but really this is your time. So I want to know what your agenda is. Why are you here today? I'm certain that about 95% of you have an individual or perhaps a group of individuals in mind. And there's someone in your life, or maybe, as I said earlier, a group of individuals, and you would like to help them improve their attention, impulse control, focus, behaviors, and overall executive function. So you may be considering Play Attention for yourself, for your child, for your clients, students, all of the above. If you would, go ahead and type in the chat box and just let me know who you're considering Play Attention for. Who do you want to help? And what areas do you want to address? You know, I know that that individual or those individuals you're thinking about have great strengths. Right? They have wonderful characteristics that we don't want to lose. They're creative. They think outside the box. They can hyper-focus when necessary. But there are also some areas that you would like to improve. So just give me a little bit of feedback so I can share your comments with the group. I can't share them all, but I do appreciate all of you typing in your answers. We did have some people who sent in some questions prior to the webinar, and I wanted to share them because I think a lot of you can relate to what they said. Shoma is really interested in helping her son remember certain things, day-to-day things like putting away papers and being more organized. Also, she has a concern about his emotional control. It seems that he has difficulty controlling his anger. And I'm certain that there are many parents here that are going through the same thing. And I am going to be talking about how Play Attention addresses those specific areas, Shoma. So I hope you're here and I will be addressing that. Wendy has an 11-year-old daughter. Now, this is what I've heard a lot over the last couple of months. a lot of parents, who are now finding themselves in the homeschool situation, you're really discovering different areas that your child struggles with and how they're struggling. What areas are they struggling with? Is it that they're constantly distracted? Is it that they can only stay focused for small amounts of time and then they get exhausted? So Wendy's saying, ever since she's been homeschooling, that it seems like her daughter is struggling more with attention and her ability to filter out distractions. So something that was controllable for her daughter when she was in the school setting is much harder. And Wendy said, she's turned off all those extra apps, but how can we teach her remain focused and filter those distractions? And Mary is an adult who has trouble organizing herself. Now, I'm certain that there's a lot of adults here today that find themselves in the same situation that Mary said. She said she gets these organizers and she's excited about using them, and then she never uses them. And at the beginning of the day, she knows everything she needs to get done, but then she forgets and doesn't get them done. So I'm certain I see a lot of people here who said impulse control and organization. That was Lori. Cindy says she's looking at it for her child. We struggle in school in general. The Google Classroom has been great, but he thinks he's on vacation. He has anxiety and also ODD. And that's really important to bring up, Cindy, that there's typically comorbidity, right? There's usually not just an attention difficulty. Usually there's an attention difficulty and anxiety, attention difficulty and oppositional defiant disorder. So there are a lot of things that may commingle, and it's very difficult to know where one ends and the other begins because they are so interrelated. But when you can improve the cognitive skills that we address within play attention, you're going to notice these other areas lessen in severity. Also, Missy's looking at it for her son, for attention and awareness. Gina wants to help her adult daughter with organization. Organization seems like a big one today. Jillian, possibly in my practice with children with learning challenges. Patricia is looking at it for her child. He takes a while to do homework and to be organized. Dina, being in a bad mood, so hard for him to do his homework. Now, I may pronounce this incorrectly, but it looks like the last name is Sandy. Myself, my son, my students, I'm an occupational therapist in the school system. And that's an important point. A lot of you are saying that you're looking at this for your child and yourself. And that's important to realize that play attention is appropriate for any age from 5 years old all the way up through adulthood. We do recommend at least 5 years old because they have to make the connections between what they're personally doing and what's appearing on screen. And that's usually developed around the age of 5. But we know it's never too late to learn. So you can work on up through adulthood. Megan says, I'm here for both my students and my son who has ADHD combined type. Excellent. So I'm sorry I can't read everyone's responses, but I do appreciate all of your feedback. And the good news is that we can help. We can help in all of these areas that you're outlining in the chat box. And we can because what we know through neuroplasticity. We know through neuroplasticity that the brain is moldable, it's shapeable. And if we provide you or your child or your clients with the right feedback and the right challenge, they can develop these skills despite their current wiring. We know now that age is not a factor, right? It used to be thought that after about the ripe old age of 9, you really didn't change that much. The brain did not change that much. But now we know that the brain continues to grow and change and create new neural pathways throughout its lifetime, as long as there's the correct challenge and the correct feedback. We also know that labels such as ADHD and autism and traumatic brain injury, that is not a factor. We can develop these skills despite your current wiring. And the importance is to develop the core cognitive skills that will then strengthen and improve executive function. Now, many of you have brought up areas of executive function, especially we've heard a lot about the prioritizing and organizing and emotional control and impulse control. How many of you here, just use that raise your hand icon because I want to get a general feel for the audience. How many of you here are familiar with the term executive function? Can you click that raise your hand icon so I can just see a quick poll? Okay, oh goodness. I'd say almost 3/4 of the group or more are familiar with the term executive function. So you can think of executive function kind of like the CEO of your brain, right? It allows you to control your behaviors, your emotions, your focus. It allows you to plan, prioritize, organize, avoid procrastination, and remain on task. And these are skills that you use every day. However, they are areas that are typically weakest for people with attention difficulties. But as we were saying earlier, we can develop these fundamental skills that are necessary for strong executive function, that lay that foundation. And that is the very foundation of play attention. Play attention provides you with a very unique and comprehensive approach to help develop those core cognitive skills. And we do this through the integration of feedback technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping to provide you with the most comprehensive, customizable program available. The very key component here is our NASA-inspired body wave technology. Now, some of you may have already seen this on our website, but this is what it looks like. This is that body wave armband, and you'll notice that on the back, there are 3 sensors. Now, those sensors monitor your brain activity that tells us how attentive you are. And then that information is given over to the computer where you're allowed to control all of our cognitive exercises just with your mind, or more specifically, your attentive state alone. And you receive constant and immediate feedback as to whether or not you truly are focused and paying attention. And this is a really important first step in the learning process, because right now, if you look at your child or your clients or your students and you say, I need you to pay attention, what do they typically say back to you? Go ahead and type in the chat box what you're typically hearing. I want to see if you're hearing the same thing I was hearing as a classroom teacher. You look at them and you say, I need you to pay attention. Okay, many of you are saying the same thing I heard. Silva, Dina, April, Terrence, Lisa, Hope, they're coming in so quickly I can't even read them all. Ardith, you're all saying, I am, right? I am paying attention. And they really do think that they are paying attention, but they just haven't developed what it takes for them personally to stay very focused to low stimuli activity. So how do we teach that? How do we teach attention? Because it is so abstract. How do we teach it? And I'm going to take a quick poll. I like you to be as interactive as we can. You'll see a poll on the screen. How do you or your children or your students learn best? Is it through lecture or hands-on? Go ahead and give me feedback. How do your children or your students or you yourself, how do you learn best? Is it through lecture or is it through hands-on? Okay. Well, so far, most of the group, all over 3/4 of you have responded, and 99% of those who responded said hands-on. Right? And that is typically how they learn best, through hands-on learning, by providing them with an experience. But unfortunately, with attention, we're typically trying to teach them how to pay attention through lecture, right? We say, sit still, eyes on me, concentrate, pay attention. And they really need an experience. And that's what the body wave armband does. We're able to actually see their attention in real time, feel their attention, and then they practice it. So you're providing them with an experience. You know, experience and feedback, that's how they learn. but it's hard to give them immediate feedback regarding their attention, because I've talked to a lot of parents who say, he's looking at the computer and I think he's paying attention to his assignment, but I don't think he's really paying attention. You could be looking at me right now when I'm doing this webinar, and you have your screen on, you can see me and the speakers are on, and I think you're paying attention, but your mind is off in the Bahamas, right? So I can't give you that feedback as to whether or not you really are paying attention. And that's the power of play attention. We give them an experience and we give them immediate feedback regarding their attention so that they can develop that self-regulation they need in order to have strong executive function. So what is attention? You can think of attention, usually when I ask people, what is attention? They'll use a synonym. Well, it's focusing, it's concentrating, but really you're saying the same thing. You can think of it as kind of like when you go to a concert. If you go to a concert, all the orchestra members are up on stage and they're all doing something different, right? Some are practicing a scale, some are tuning their instruments, some may be organizing their music. But when the conductor comes out and he raises his baton and he brings that baton down, all of the musicians fire in synchrony, meaning they all play at one time. And that's what we know as music. The same is true for attention. Right now, you have billions of neurons firing in your brain at different times. But when all of those neurons fire in synchrony, you give off a very specific electromagnetic signal. And that's what that body wave armband is listening for. It's listening for that moment when all of those neurons are firing in synchrony and you are in that attentive state. And that is the information that's passed along and incorporated with all of these cognitive skill areas. Remember, I mentioned we're going to work on cognitive skills that are necessary for strong executive function. So here are all the different areas. You'll notice that every single play attention activity is worked on for a reason. It has an educational correlate because we want to make certain that they're going to be able to actually transfer and generalize these skills back in the classroom, back into the workplace, and back at home. So if you look at the very first activity, it's called attention stamina. That is your ability to direct and sustain your attention at will, much like being able to pay attention to the teacher in the classroom or the boss in the workplace, or all of these Zoom webinars we're attending now and Zoom meetings that we're attending, being able to direct and sustain your attention to that activity. Now remember, all of the activities are attention enhanced, meaning you have to be actively engaged in order to work in any of these areas. If you're not paying attention, the activity is going to stop or the character is going to go in the wrong direction, because we know the very first catalyst necessary for brain change is attention. You have to be paying attention to the teaching method in order to learn anything, in order to spark brain change. So that's why we require and integrate that feedback technology with cognitive skills. So you can only practice these skills if you are actually paying attention. Okay. Now, I'm going to share with you a video of one of my students. This is my student, Ty, and in this video, he is 9 years old in this video, and he is going to show you attention stamina. Now, one of the very first things you're going to notice is that the graphics are very simple. They are very low stimuli, and we do this for a specific reason. How many of you here, and you can raise your hand to give me a response, how many of you here have a child and he has a severe attention difficulty, but he can play his Xbox or Minecraft or Fortnite for hours and never move? Or I used to hear a lot about it with Legos. You know, he can play his Legos for hours and hours. Or as a teacher, you might be hearing, you know, I don't think she has an attention problem. She can pay attention to her video game or YouTube videos for hours. Yeah. Many of you are saying yes to that. You can relate to that. And that is because They are wired to pay attention to high stimuli and high interest, right? There is no such thing as attention deficit. We hear so much about attention deficit, but that's really a misnomer. They don't have a deficit of attention. Usually they have great attention. It's just scattered over a variety of things, right? They're paying attention to a little bit of everything. So they can tell you a little bit about what the teacher said, but they also know what the bird's doing outside and what Johnny's doing in the back of the room, because they're paying attention to bits and pieces of everything. Also, they are wired to pay attention to high stimuli. So that is why we are going to present low stimuli activities, because we know they can pay attention to entertainment. We don't need to teach them that. What we need to teach them is what's more difficult, and that's how to pay attention to low stimuli situations, much like the classroom teacher who cannot possibly compete with that high stimuli. So I'm going to show you this video, but I think before I do that, I should take one more poll. This is my final poll, but I do need to make certain that everyone is on the same page before we watch Ty, because he has that body wave armband on his arm. What is that body wave armband monitoring? Is it A, eye movement? You should be able to plug your answers in on the screen. B, breathing. C, brain activity. Or D, FM radio. And yes, Sandra, it is. This is about play attention and how we improve executive function. And Mohammed, you will get a copy of this presentation. All right. Okay, almost all of you, 85% of you have answered correctly. So one more time, the body wave armband is monitoring brain activity, not eye movement, not breathing, not FM radio. Someone out there put that in there. It is brain activity, okay? Brain activity. So it's nothing other than real-time feedback regarding brain activity indicative of attention. So here you're going to see Ty, and you'll notice that he's telling you he's going to see the character at the top of the screen. Once he's focused and paying attention, he's going to be able to push that character down to the bottom of the ocean just with his attention alone. If he gets distracted, he's going to show you what happens. But look first here. You notice that he is now sitting back, he's relaxed, no hands required. He's focusing in, he's pushing that character down to the bottom of the ocean just with his attention alone, just with his mind alone. So how empowering is this? If he's been told for 9 years, you can't pay attention, you never pay attention, you have to pay attention, within the first couple of minutes, he's actually rewarded for paying attention. And that's really empowering. If you have a child right now who feels everything's outside of his control, now you're showing him this is something he can or she can control. Now he's showing you what happens when he's not paying attention. He's fidgeting, he's daydreaming, he's a little bit of a ham. And when he's not paying attention, that character starts to float up because he's no longer as attentive. Now he gets that immediate feedback we talked about, that experience. Now he has to control that behavior, control that daydreaming, focus back in order to push that character down to the bottom of the ocean. Again, now he has that experience. So the next time you look at your child or your clients and you say, I need you to pay attention, she has an experience to draw upon, right? She's been there before in play attention. She knows what you're talking about, and they can draw upon those experiences in order to pay attention at will. So that's very fundamental. Now, the first 6 activities I'm going to review, then they come standard in the core. And there is a beginner, intermediate, and advanced skill option in each cognitive skill area. So you are going to have to reach certain benchmarks to move up to intermediate and then to advanced. But our artificial intelligence called Sheer Genius is going to track those benchmarks and move them up when appropriately. So graduate you to the next level when appropriate. All of that is managed for you. It's nothing that you need to keep up with. It's all managed by our artificial intelligence. And when you get into the higher levels, intermediate and advanced, we do mandate more longer time challenges, as well as task switching, not multitasking, task switching. and we add distractors, processing speed, and impulse control. All of that is included in every single intermediate and advanced skill option. Now, there are some questions that are coming in that I do want to address. If I don't address everyone's questions, it's just because we have a very large group, but we will answer them at the end of the webinar or in a follow-up. But there are some questions that are being repeated here that I would like to address. Several of you have asked, how are we monitoring brain activity on the body without a wire connection? So there are several of you who have asked that, and I'm sure this is because you are used to seeing systems that monitor brain activity, but they always have something on the head, right? They have a headband or sticky pads. Even the first 14 years of Play Attention, we had a helmet design. And that is the reason everyone has something on the head, is because the signal, remember we were talking about when all of the neurons fire in synchrony, meaning that you are giving off a very specific electromagnetic signal. Now that's what we're listening for, right? But that signal is so small, it's so minute that it's easiest to monitor if you're close to the source, which of course is the head. The difficulty with that is that, especially when you're working with children and adults with attention difficulties, there's often sensory issues. No one likes to wear something on the head. It's invasive, it's uncomfortable. So we have advanced the technology to a point where we can now monitor that same brain activity, but we do it through the body. Because when you move away from the source, the head, that signal doesn't disappear. It just gets harder to tune into because we have to filter out all of the noise that occurs from the head to where we have that body wave armband placed. So we have to filter for heart rate and blood pressure and breathing. So we have advanced processors and our special algorithm and filtering technology so that we can still tune into that very same signal that our helmet once monitored. Just makes it much easier to use and much simpler for you. So now if you want a more in-depth look at the Play Attention technology and get a better understanding of that, go ahead and type in Time Magazine, because I'll send you a 3-page article from Time Magazine that was done on our body wave system. Also, if you would like, there's about an hour interview with our CEO, Peter Freer, and he discusses the advancement of the technology and kind of the evolution of the technology itself. That's a transformative tech conference interview. And so if you would like that interview copy, just type in Trans Tech and we'll make certain that we get that to you as well. So those are for all the individuals who want a little bit more information on the technical aspect. Now, we also had a question from Jen, and she said, can you explain how this technology compares to traditional neurofeedback done in a psychologist's office? Absolutely. When you go to a traditional neurofeedback clinician, typically they believe that attention problems are caused by brainwave dysregulation. So they believe that if you fix the brainwave, you fix the individual. So when you go into an office, they'll typically tell you that they're going to decrease theta and they're going to increase beta, and they just look at brainwave output. That's their focus. They may even sit at a completely different computer than where you or your child is working. And that's okay. You may see some changes in attention while they're actively involved in those sessions. However, as all of you said, my very first question, who do you want to work with and what are the areas you want to improve? There was a lot more in there than just attention, right? It was attention, it was organization, impulse control, processing, anxiety, being able to start and complete assignments in a timely manner, following through with multiple step instructions. There's so much more to it than attention. So if we want to teach your child how to finish his homework in a timely manner, we have to teach those skills directly. So that's the difference between not only Play Attention and traditional neurofeedback, but any other program out there, is that we integrate the feedback with specific cognitive skill training and behavior shaping so that you can teach them the skills that they need in real life. Because if you change a brainwave, that's okay. You can change a brainwave. Brainwaves change all the time, but it doesn't mean you're going to get your homework done on time. It doesn't mean you're going to get your work assignments done in a timely manner or follow through with multiple step instructions. If you want to improve skills, we have to teach them directly, and that's what we do. I hope that answers your question, Jen. If you do have additional questions, please let me know. All right, many of you typed in that you want time and trans tech. We will definitely get those out there. Okay. Now, we also work on visual tracking. So this is a great one if the teacher's ever said, you know, he does great if I stand right next to him. But as soon as I walk away, he's out the window and out the door, and then he has that diffused attention where he's paying attention to a little bit of everything. So we work on staying very focused and visually tracking that teacher as he or she moves about the classroom, or the boss in the workplace. Someone just asked if this is appropriate for adults. Yes, it is. Now, time on task. This is the ability to start an assignment right away, keep your attention on that assignment until completion, that closed-end tasking. How many of you are going through this where a 15-minute assignment is taking 2 or 3 hours? You can raise your hand with the icon. How many of you give your child an assignment and you think this should take 20 minutes and it takes 2 or 3 hours? Or you as an adult think, I start a million things and I finish nothing. Any of you experiencing that right now? Yeah, a lot of you. The numbers are going up very quickly here. And that's really typical. And you know what's usually frustrating and was frustrating for me as a teacher is that usually the individuals we're working with are average to well above average in intelligence. It's not that they don't know how to do the reading, the math, the work assignment in your workplace. It's just the process that's difficult, right? The executive function, being able to avoid procrastination, start right away, keep your attention on that assignment until completion. So that closed-end tasking, that's what we're going to teach there. And it's a bit different than attention stamina. Attention stamina goes on for 5 minutes in the beginner skill level, and then it stops. Time on task, that activity in the beginner will go on and on and on until you complete your task. And that is to mentally drive a character, a forklift driver, over to the left-hand side of the screen, pick up a crate, and then drive it over to a flatbed truck. Now, in order to finish that, you have to drive that forklift driver over. Whenever you get distracted or you're daydreaming, that character is going to freeze. And you have to focus back in order to drive them again. And your task is to move all 12 of those crates over to the flatbed truck and then drive the truck off the screen. Now, you're going to notice if you're procrastinating, like Mary, who had sent in her question earlier about her organization, if you're procrastinating, if you're fidgety, if you're daydreaming, that task is going to take 12, 13, 14 minutes. But the faster you become, the more proficient you become at starting and completing, you're going to consistently complete this in 7 minutes or less. So you're actually teaching that self-regulation, self-monitoring to learn how to start and complete in a timely manner. We're not just giving a homework assignment and saying, okay, I need you to finish this in 10 minutes. We're teaching them how to complete it in 10 minutes. That's really critical. Okay, now a lot of times what I like to do after I do time on task is go down to the academic bridge. You see that here on the second line, academic bridge. And the reason I like to do this next is that this is where we're going to ask you to apply all of those skills you're learning within Play Attention and apply them to your actual work. Now look at this activity, academic bridge. This, my student here, she has the body wave armband on. Remember, monitoring her brain activity, not where her eyes are, her brain activity that tells us how attentive she is. Now, as long as she's paying attention to her textbook reading, that line is going up above the midline. Now, she's not looking at the screen, so what she's hearing from the computer is good, great, so she knows she's focused. But now in just a moment, you're going to see that she's going to be a typical teenager, right? She starts looking over at her friends, she'll start playing with her hair, and you'll notice what happens to that red line. Now it starts to drop below that yellow midline. And she's going to hear focus because she's no longer in that state she needs to be in order to process the material and follow through and complete that assignment in a timely manner. So this is that transfer and generalization, asking her to use the skills she's learning and apply them to her actual work. Now you can do this whether you're doing, some work activity like a databasing if you're an adult, or answering emails or writing a report. You can also use this activity. I have one adult client who actually is a day trader, and she uses this during day trading so that she's only making her trades when she's in her peak attentive state. I have another gentleman who uses it when he's practicing the piano. So it really is a great way to start applying those skills. We also work on short-term memory, the ability to remember dates, names, facts, and discriminatory processing, the ability to filter distractions, both auditory and visual. Maria, if you missed the demo that Ty did, it'll be in the follow-up, okay? Sorry you didn't see that demonstration. Now, those 6 come standard in the core. The remaining are the options for you, and we will pick and choose from these when we set up your profile. Auditory processing, this is the ability to follow through with multiple step instructions. Go to your room, put away your sneakers, bring down your jacket. They'll be able to do that instead of you constant reminding them or redirecting. Hand-eye coordination, this helps with handwriting, keyboarding, catching a ball. Motor skills, this helps with that mind-body coordination. So if you have a client who has more bumps, bruises, accidents than his peers, this is a great one. Social skills, I talk to so many parents who will say, my daughter is so sweet, but she has a really hard time with peer relationships. And that's usually just because they miss the look, they miss the shake of the head. So we want to help them learn how to focus on those social cues so that they can then respond appropriately. Spatial memory, remembering where things are located. So if you come in and you throw your car keys down on the counter, 2 hours later when you have to leave, you'll remember where they are. And then working memory. This is a higher level thinking skill. So this is that ability to take in different bits of information, manipulate that information in some way, and then give a response, much like a mathematical word problem. Or in the days before GPS, if we can think that far back, remember if I gave you directions on how to get to my house, you would be able to then store those instructions and then follow through and come to my house. So that's that higher level thinking skill. And we have another one that's not on that screen, but it's called Lotus. And a lot of you are looking for mindfulness right now, right? You need that time of peace and quiet. I have one person here that Tanya says she's having a hard time even watching and listening the webinar because the kids are making it so challenging. So Tanya needs mindfulness, a time to just bring herself to the present moment, right? And so this activity is teaching you mindfulness. And we hear so much about how mindfulness techniques help with the symptoms of ADHD. But you can't just look at an individual with an attention difficulty and say, now I want you to practice mindfulness. Because mindfulness is hard. It's hard for all of us, but especially if your mind is constantly running. So the accommodation we make is that we give you a visual representation of what it means to be in the now. So as long as you have your mind in the present moment, you are able to open a petal of the lotus flower. If you start thinking about what time's your next meeting, what are you going to make for dinner, when's the next appointment that you have for your children, that petal is going to start to close because you no longer are in the present moment. And then you have to bring your mind back to the present moment, and then you're going to continue opening that lotus flower. And there's some really relaxing music that goes along with it. So we're going to give you that mindfulness moment, and you can practice keeping your mind in the now. So those are all of the cognitive skill areas that we address. And I want to go back to that main screen actually, because remember earlier, we were talking about the areas of executive function, and we brought up impulse control. We brought up emotional control. Organization was a big one that we brought up. There's also mental flexibility, right? The ability to transition from one activity to another. These are all the different components of executive function. And although you don't see an activity on the screen that says organization, In order for you or your child or your clients to be organized, you have to be able to pay attention, remember the instructions, avoid procrastination, start right away, process the information, control your impulsivity. And all of those skills, all of those foundational skills are worked on in every single play attention activity. So whenever you are working on your play attention session, you are developing the skills that are necessary for strong executive function and self-regulation. Now, also, in addition, remember I said there were 3 components: feedback technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping. So we have a great behavior shaping program. Raise your hand if you are interested in helping your child or your clients or students start to learn how to control behaviors like fidgeting, calling out, nail biting, chewing on their shirts. Any of you interested in that? Okay, it looks like about half of you or more are interested in working on these behavioral areas. Now, if you do not have these areas, if you're an adult and you don't have any interest in working in these areas because you don't have these behaviors, or your child does not have these behaviors, they're just the inattentive type, that's fine. We'll turn this component off in their profile. But for all of you who said you do want to work on behaviors, Play Attention has a great behavior shaping program because they actually get a one-to-one correlation on how certain behaviors affect their attention, okay? And it's really powerful because right now, usually they're very unaware that they're even doing these behaviors. They don't know they're fidgeting or humming. That's a big one. They're not aware of it, right? And more importantly, they don't know how it affects them. So that's not going to incite a behavioral change. You know, when I was working in the classroom, I had one student, Jay Lon, and I'd be teaching math. He'd call out what he did over the weekend. And Dina says in school, all of these behaviors come up. So you can relate to what I'm saying, right? I'd teach math, he'd call out what he did over the weekend. And when I originally asked him, I said, Jaylon, why do you think it's important you don't call out? And he said, because you tell me not to. So he had no idea how it affected him. He just knew it bothered me, so he shouldn't do it. But that's not enough to make a change. But in doing the play attention activity, remember what Ty was doing? He would push it down to the bottom of the ocean when he was paying attention. Jelon would have that character at the bottom, and then he'd call out, I like SpaghettiOs, just something random. And immediately that character starts to float up. Now I have a teachable moment. What happened to that character when you called out? Well, it floated up. So what does that mean? It means I'm not paying attention. So in the classroom, when you do that, what does that mean? It means I'm not paying attention. So now he gets that one-to-one correlation. Then sheer genius is going to set behavioral goals. So over time, not only is he aware of it and he knows how it affects him, over time he sees he can control it. And that's the real powerful part. Again, that self-regulation is being developed. It's no longer me or the teacher or mom saying what to do and what not to do. We're guiding them through the process. And that's where you're going to see the behavioral changes. Now, we've been doing this for 26 plus years. So we just celebrated our 26th anniversary. But Tufts University School of Medicine wanted to know, is this integration that Play Attention does, is it important? Or can we just give you a series of cognitive exercises or what you hear about as brain games and get the same results? So they went into the Boston Public School District and they had 3 different groups of students, all identified as ADHD. The first group received Play Attention, so full integration. The second group received just cognitive exercises, much like brain games, like luminosity that you used to hear a lot about. No feedback technology, no behavior shaping, just cognitive exercises. The third group received no intervention at all. And at the end, that was their control. At the end of the study, the Play Attention students were the only students that showed global improvements in all areas, including academic, social, behavioral, and executive function. They were also the only students that if they started the study and they were on medication, at the end of the study, the Play Attention students had a decrease in their medication, where the other two groups had an average increase. And that goes back to skill building. Medication works for some people by controlling symptoms, but medication does not teach any behaviors, and it doesn't teach any skills, and it doesn't change behaviors. So we don't want to medicate and fail to educate. If you're using medication to set the stage for learning, then we need a program in place like Play Attention to teach the skills that medication alone cannot teach. So great studies. They also did a 6-month follow-up to make certain that once the Play Attention training ended, did they maintain those skills, which they did. If you want a copy of the Tufts University School of Medicine research studies, please just type Tufts in the Q&A box, in the chat box, and I'll make certain that you get that as well. So Tufts, if you are one of those individuals who likes to read studies, and we'll get those studies out to you, okay? All right, now we talked about earlier how we customize the plan, because we know Play Attention is a great program, but one size fits all approach will not work, right? We have to look at everyone's different strengths and weaknesses. So we customize everyone's plan. And we do this a couple of different ways. Now, everyone here, whether you're a professional client or a home client, you're going to receive or you're going to be assigned, a personal executive function coach, one of our coaches here on staff. And that person is assigned to you to help you every step of the way. And let me be very clear, you have a lifetime membership. So whether you're using the program for a year or for 15 years, you will always have that unlimited support with your executive function coach. What we do in the beginning is customize your plan, and we can do this a couple of different ways. We can incorporate a conversation where we just talk about your different strengths and weaknesses, or we do have a couple of assessments available, and those include the brief and the focus assessments. Now, some of you have already been through a lot of assessments, and you may think we have enough information. You know, I talk to some parents who say, we just went through a 3-hour neuropsych evaluation, we have a 25-page report, let's just go from there. So they share that information. So you can do that. If you would like our assessment package, the focus assessment is a norm reference test of attentional control. It takes about 20 minutes. And at the end of the 20 minutes, we'll receive a report here that tells us how you or your child performed compared to that of their performance of their peers. Then we also have the brief available, and the brief is a survey of executive function. So it gives us a good overview. After you complete those assessments, we'll need about a 30-minute block of time for you and your executive function coach to review the results and talk about your customized profile, where we actually pinpoint the different cognitive skill areas that you would like to address and we would like to improve through the training. Now, many of you here have been asking about how you can get these assessments. Of course, we are going to provide one free assessment package when you start your program. But if you want to do the assessment package, you're interested in just seeing, you know, what your customized plan would look like, and you want to have yourself or your child or student go through the brief and the focus and have that consult with us, go ahead and type in assessment, and we will contact you and get you registered for the assessment package. That will include the focus assessment and the brief assessment. And then we'll need about, like I said, about 30 minutes to review the results with you and talk about your plan. You know, I was thinking about that with Wendy, because she said she'd never gotten her daughter assessed because she didn't really think it was that big of an issue because she was doing well in the school setting. But now that school is at home, she's starting to see these challenges. So if you have questions, this is a great way to really see, let's pinpoint what areas need to be addressed, and then we can look at Play Attention and see if we can customize a plan that will really work for you or your family. Now, we do need to contact you because they are norm referenced, so we'll need the date of birth of the participant. So we'll contact you for that information so that we can get you registered. Okay, then once we get you registered, we go over your profile, then we set up your profile here. So this is just general information, and this is one of our children interfaces. We put in general information, and then here's the important part, right? We take all that information we talked about on that assessment, and then we actually highlighted the different cognitive areas that are most appropriate for this individual. So you see all the ones highlighted in blue are the appropriate skills for this individual. And then at the top of the right-hand corner of the screen, you see a number 4. That means when this individual logs into her session, our artificial intelligence called Sheer Genius is going to select the most appropriate 4 activities for this session based on previous performance. Okay, so it does everything for you. So all of the management side is taken care of for you. Okay, and Laura, we have a great webinar from last week regarding how to motivate your ADHD teenager. So we'll get that out to you so you can watch some of that, okay? The assessments are 20 minutes in length for your teenager to take the focus, and you can fill out the survey on executive function. Okay, good question. There's no age limit, at least 5 years old, but all the way up through 105, Amber, so no problem. Okay, so now, if you wanted the assessment, please don't just raise your hand because I won't have a copy of that. You have to type assessment in the chat box, okay? I just want to make certain you're clear on that because some of you raised your hands. And we are doing that free of cost right now, that initial assessment and consultation, okay? All right, so now we set up the profile, and I told you how Sheer Genius is going to make those decisions for you, which is great because you don't have to keep up with one more thing, right? And then not only does Sheer Genius select the appropriate games, but we set up a deliberate practice model. You can't just go through the motions. You are going to have a deliberate practice model. So first things first, you log in, you have your curriculum for the day, and then Sheer Genius sets mini goals for you. So you see here that today's mini goal for this individual is to maintain 75% attention or higher, okay? And also there's a behavioral goal to fidget less than 7 times. So now goal setting's there. Can't just go through the motions. I have a goal in mind that's going to push me towards higher levels of achievement. And then right after the activity ends, you get immediate feedback as to whether or not you reached that goal. And you see here that this student did reach his goal. Not only was he 75% attentive, but he was 85% attentive. And then all of your data is stored for you. Graphs and charts and all of this raw data is stored for you. So you can always see progress over time. But if you ever at any point think, I don't want to just look at graphs and charts, I want to have a report. That's when you reach out to your executive function coach and say, I would like a progress review. We'll talk to you, we'll look at your data, then send you a full report talking to you about progress and helping you set objectives. All of that, again, is all included with your lifetime membership. That unlimited support, those progress reviews is all there for you. Now, Jerry asks, how fast can you go through this program? And so that is a very good question, Jerry. And it leads me into my next screen, because we do recommend you're very consistent in your training and you can work at least an hour per week. We do recommend at least an hour per week. And you can break this up. It could be 2 30-minute sessions. It could be 4 15-minute sessions, whatever works best for you. And I know a lot of parents have been asking me lately, can we do more than an hour per week? Because we really have to get these skills up to help with the transition in the new school year, because this has been an odd time, right? We need to work on those skills so that we can transition back into the classroom smoothly when this transition is going to happen. And for a lot of adults, same thing is true. You want to use this time to work on yourself, develop these skills so that you become a real asset when you get back into the workplace, and that you have these skills there that you can use in your workplace. So you can do more than an hour per week, and you can talk to your executive function about doing that. Now, after about a month and a half of consistent training, you're going to start to see small steps of improvement. So you're going to notice that you're a little bit more focused, that your child's following through with multiple step instructions, that peer relationships are improved. You're going to start seeing these changes in your day-to-day. You are more engaged. You attend a webinar or you attend a meeting online, and when you get done, you remember what was discussed. So you're more engaged. You're going to start seeing these changes. But what you're not seeing is what's actually occurring in the brain. This goes back to what we were talking about in neuroplasticity, right? When you start sparking that brain change, then you are causing these new neural pathways to become formed. And in the beginning, they're weak networks, right? So one day it might look like they're doing beautifully, and then the next day it looks like they've never heard the words pay attention. So it's going to be up and down in the beginning because these networks are weak. But through the practice and repetition, you're going to start strengthening these networks to a point of permanency. And that is key. That is what you want to hear, right? That we are going to invest this time now, but we're going to have a permanent change. So if you are going to be working with your 8-year-old son, not only will he have these skills now when he's 8, but he's going to have them when he's 48. Or if you are 48, you're going to have these skills when you're 68. So we want to work to a point of permanency. And that usually takes around 40 hours of training on the software. Everyone learns differently. So around 40 hours, we're going to look at your data. You and your executive function coach will have another meeting. We'll make certain that you're at all the advanced skill options. We may do another focus or brief assessment to make certain that the skills have transferred and generalized. If everything looks good, then we can start weaning you off the program. If it looks like there's more work to be done, we simply customize your plan and we keep working. Remember, there's no hard stop. This is your program. We work with you as long as necessary. Even if you graduate the program and you want to continue using the program as peak performance training, you can, okay? You can receive that. All right. Now, Rowita, remember, every cognitive skill is worked on to ensure transfer and generalization. And then with Academic Bridge, you are going to actually be doing real work activities during your play attention training. So you're applying the skills that you're learning in real life activities. So I wanted to share, when we're talking about this permanency, which is our end goal, right? I wanted to share this video, and this is Latravius. He used play attention when he was 11 years old. And I like to share this. It's less than 2 minutes, so I do hope you can stay for it. And he talks about the permanency because he used this program when he was 11 years old, and still today he is well past the graduation stage of play attention. He graduated when he was 12, but at 30 some years old, he still applies those skills that he learned when he was 11. So I would love for you to hear.
I began to use play attention when I was in the 6th grade. I was about 11 years old. The behavior and the incident that required me to use play attention was my concentration levels. My mother felt that I wasn't concentrating enough. My grades were not where they were supposed to be, and I just had trouble staying on task. Her options were either medication or play attention, and she felt like that it would be a better long-term approach for me. And I would go from my classroom to use play attention for a specific amount of time each day. When you're using play attention, you can see the results immediately because you can actually see your results at that time. I'm extremely glad she made that decision. My attention improved a lot immediately. Before I was using play attention, my grades were C's and D's. I was an average student, below average. But when I started using play attention, I began to see my grades increase as well as my concentration level. I became an A/B student. That gives your self-esteem a real boost. It shows that whatever you put your mind to, that it is obtainable. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for a healthcare organization, And so I utilized the skills that I obtained early from using play attention when I was that sixth grader that could not concentrate, that could not stay on task. And I have really adjusted those skills into life skills, using them every day when I'm working, when I'm having to plan meetings, or I'm having to do presentations. It has really allowed me to concentrate fully. I think anybody could benefit from play attention because I think it can improve whatever concentration level or concentration issues that you may have. You know, I was actually watching on television not too long ago and someone was talking about betting on yourself. And I think that purchasing play attention is betting on yourself. You want to put all on you to make sure that you are the person that you want to be.
I hope you enjoyed that. And it is important for him to just reiterate what we were saying, that if you are investing this time in yourself or your child or your students, you want to make certain that this is something they're going to carry throughout their lifetime. Not only can we be successful today, but we'll have those skills we need to be successful in the future. And that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to help customize a plan to suit your particular needs.